I think, are fairly aware that both consider Joe to be the favorite here.
Yeah, definitely. And, Todd's no stranger to hard matchups, and he's not going to let that stop him from doing his best to win here. What do you think his best plan is?
Joe's or Todd's?
Todd's.
Well, all right. I'm pretty sure what Todd's going to have to do is he's going to have to hope that Joe stumbles a little bit in the early game. Get these two syncopates and detention spheres in play will be all very important.
Yep.
All right, Joe Bernal starting off on his 2-2-for-1 Diagraph Ghoul. Todd is the higher seed elected to play in this game. Todd has his mana base developed, steam vents and planes. Gravecrawler gets syncopated immediately, and that's very important for Todd.
Yeah, definitely. To snag that Gravecrawler on turn 2, as opposed to something like a Diagraph Ghoul, to syncopate a Gravecrawler or a Bump in the Night is huge for Todd.
Right, Todd doesn't have an Entreat the Angels and a Jace Architect of Thought in his hand. And he has the Detention Sphere, so Todd, with kind of exactly what he needed here, he elects not to shock himself to play the Detention Sphere. It's going to deal 2 damage either way. He either takes 2 off his land or 2 from this swing. I don't think it matters much both ways.
Right, and there's always a chance that Joe Bernal draws another Diagraph Ghoul this turn, so
right,
almost no downside.
So Geralf's Messenger comes down from Joe Bernal. That knocks Todd down to 14, so 2 more from the Diagraph Ghoul. And Todd, I think, really drawing, well, he's stuck on 3 lands. He did draw a Pillar of Flame for the Geralf's Messenger, which is pretty important.
Yeah, and we see him use that right there. He'll save the Detention Sphere, still hoping to get that 2-for-1 off of it. Hoping that Joe Bernal draws some more Diagraph Ghouls.
Ghouls hits him down to 12. And Joe's going to Bump in the Night him. So now we have a straight game plan. Alright, Todd dropping down to 9 life. Post-combat, Joe Bernal is going to, looking at just 1 mana. It's going to Pillar in Flame at Todd.
Ooh, and that's
Todd
not
drops to 7.
a good sign if you're Todd.
2 cards left in Joe's hand. Joe's building back up to the flashback. The flashback on Bump in the Night, which is 6 mana. Alright, and Todd's going to have to Detention Sphere the Diagraph Ghoul.
And there it is.
Ooh. Falconwrath Aristocrat knocks Todd down to 3 life. Land number 5 for Joe Bernal. Detention Sphere and Aristocrat, but Todd is dead to a land here.
Exactly. Any land and half the spells in his deck.
Brimstone Volley.
Wow.
Alright, Joe Bernal winning game 1. And I think that's kind of exactly what we were talking about.
Right, Joe Bernal had a very average draw right there, nothing too special. Todd Anderson, maybe a little below average. He would have liked to have another pillar. He would have liked to have a Snapcaster Mage, but...
Well, he had a Syncopate, a Pillar, and a Detention Sphere, which are basically all the cards in his deck, which interact at below 4 mana. He was able to play the cast them all. Unfortunately, he's stuck on 3 lands, and so he really needs to hit all those spells and hit his lands on time to be able to stay in the match.
Right. Now, for those of you unaware, we do a trivia question every round of the top 8. Now, yesterday's was for 3 rounds of Star City Games Premium. This round, it's for 6 months of Star City Games Premium. The finals will be 1 year of Star City Games Premium. So, the way this works, we're going to ask you a trivia question. You have to tweet with the hashtag SCGPremium with the correct answer. You don't have to tweet at SCG Live, you don't have to tweet at me or Matthias, but you can.
But right down here, to make sure that this tag is on your entry.
Exactly, SCG Premium. Right. And our question is...
All right, so...
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so we have this is for 6 months of premium. Our question is going to be, so we have on the other side of the deck, Christopher Weidinger has probably our most innovative deck in the top 8. And remember, all our top 8 decks are posted on StarCityGames.com, so if you're just joining us today, you should be able to look this up. We are wanting to know the name of the new Mythic Rare from Return to Ravnica that is a 4 of and is being reanimated in Christopher Weidinger's Frights deck.
Yeah. Very good question. And, this creature, people sort of wrote him or her off. Going to keep it a little gender neutral here.
Sure.
Not going to give away the answer, but I think this card is going to be a pretty big player in the new standard.
I would say certainly it along with Gristlebrand, I think are easily easily one of the best reanimation targets in the format.
Yeah.
All right. So tweet that at SCG. So hashtag SCG Premium.
Yep.
All right. We'll bring you back to the match for game 2. Both players sideboarding. Todd certainly going to sideboard in Dissipates and Negates. Both of these are really important. He needs anything that can interact below that 4 mana threshold. his cards like Supreme Verdict, I think, are just really far too slow for this matchup.
Right, exactly. Terminus is all right because he can actually top deck it and, kill something on turn 2, turn 3. But Entreat the Angels, things like that, Jace, Tameo, these cards are just so slow. And while you have to keep in some number of Entreats, it's really tough to sideboard here if you're Todd.
Yeah, the bad news on the other side is that Joe Bernal's deck just gets better in this matchup after board. The 3 Underworld connections you see at the top are all excellent in the matchup against Todd. If you don't recall, Underworld Connections is the 3-mana enchantment that gives your land the ability to tap, lose a life, and draw a card. In Joe's deck, that's really just a fancy way of saying tap to deal even more damage. It's just going to draw more burn spells.
Exactly. Now, do you think Todd's going to bring in the 2 Sundering Growth to fight those Underworld Connections? Because keep in mind that both players have full access to each other's deck lists here.
I wouldn't. I do see him being able to do that. He has 4 Detention Spheres, which I think is really still how he wants to approach it. If he wanted to bring in the Sundering Growths, he'd be siding out Azorius Charms, I think, at that point. Azorius Charm, not very useful in the matchup. It's basically just going to cycle. But the question is whether Todd would rather draw a Sundering Growth or a generic other card in his deck. And I think the generic card's a little stronger than the Sundering Growth.
Yeah, if I was Todd, I would really wish I had a little more versatile answer to deal with that. With any enchantment, really, but it stinks to have to Detention Sphere the Underworld connections because meanwhile the creatures are beating you down. So Todd Anderson's going to be on a pretty big bind here as he has to decide what to Detention Sphere because he only has access to 4, and a lot of things need detaining, that's for sure. So Todd will be on the play for game 2. As you can see, that first game took about 3, 4, 5 minutes, somewhere in that time frame. Both players just definitely have to know that this matchup is heavily in Joe's favor. Joe, in fact, looks bored. Doesn't even look like Todd's going to pose a challenge to him. Waiting for his next round opponent here.
Sure.
Chris Weidinger and Lauren Nolan on the other side of the bracket, still in game 1. They probably have about 4 lands each.
Yeah.
A little more methodical of players than Joe Bernal, Todd Anderson.
Well, I think both these players, again, that's not to say that they're not skilled players. They're both pretty aware of their roles in the matchup and really comfortable playing through it at a clip, especially in this matchup. And I think that both players have really defined roles, makes it easier to play.
Yeah, Todd Anderson is just looking to preserve his life total as best as he can. He's going to be throwing away his cards as fast as he can because he might lose a few cards in the process, but if he can stay at a healthy 10, 12 life, something like that, he has a chance. If he stabilizes at 6, that's 1 or 2 burn spells from Joe Bernal, and there's no way that Todd Anderson can race that. Todd Anderson could really use something like a Rock's Life Mender in his sideboard, some sort of life gain creature.
Right, the Rocks. Yeah, the Rock. We saw Rock's Faith Mender yesterday, actually, in Chris Weidinger's deck, which I think both the matchups, if Joe makes it to the finals, will be more difficult for him. Both players equipped to deal with more burn cards.
Yeah, Centaur Healer into
Todd with
Faith
a
Mender.
trio of Pillar of Flames in his opener. Trio of Pillar of Flames, lands, and a Think Twice. I think that seems to me to be really where he wants to be right now.
That is exactly what he wants. That's a great draw.
Alright, so a Swamp, Diagraph Pool, a Guildgate, and Joe, turn 2, has no more 1-drop. Is just going to go straight for the bump in the night, down to 17.
So yeah, Joe Bernal with a Searing Spear in hand, I see too. So Todd Anderson has only 11 life points to work with.
And Joe has drawn Underworld Connections. Todd with no way to deal with this card. And Joe's going to go straight for it. He's going to go with Geralf's Messenger.
Yep.
Todd drops down to 15 now. This will... Todd electing not to think twice on end step there, interestingly enough.
So here's another pillar.
The question is, if Todd is going to shock himself, he is going to take 2 to hold up Dissipate.
Wow.
Alright, and that's a very bold move on Todd's part. That 2 damage, almost a full card that he's giving Joe Bernal.
Exactly. Now, if you're Joe Bernal, you think of Todd's deck list right now and you say, okay, what costs 3 that he could play right now? And if you remember right, it's only Syncopate and it's only Dissipate.
Bump. Todd elects not to Dissipate a bump in the night. Todd. And another land from Joe passes the turn. The thing is, remember, when your opponent's playing spells that deal you 3, dealing yourself 2 is quite the... isn't anything to scoff at there.
No. And interesting that Joe Bernal doesn't play the Underworld connections there. Reads Todd for the Dissipate.
Yeah, Todd draws Entreat the Angels. It could be Miracled, but he does not have double white. Joe Bernal brings Todd down to 7.
And wow, there's a Brimstone Volley. So Joe Bernal, with the 2 bumps and the Brimstone Volley in his hand, is representing lethal, entering the combat phase only once this game, or 0 times.
Falcon Wrath Aristocrat getting a Dissipate. Good play by Joe Bernal. I think he wants to resolve Underworld connections more. I think he realizes if he can hit 6 lands, this game is his. And there's land number 5. And Underworld connections is going to come down on a swamp. Todd has no way to deal with it. As of yet, he has Entreat the Angel, Snapcaster Mage, Azorius Charm, Pillar Flame, and Tameo the Moon Sage. He's going to have to, on end step, he's going to flashback and think twice.
Yep, he'll be searching for answers here.
He draws a land. It's good. He has a Tameo. The Tameo has to lock down this Underworld, this swamp.
Yep, Joe will get 1 card out of it, but Todd has to know that he's in trouble. At 7 life, he's forced to tap out. Any kind of Aristocrat, anything like that, is trouble for him. You think Joe Brimstone Volume right here?
Yes, absolutely. Joe Brimstone volleys him to 4, and then Joe should have 2 more bump in the ninth. Every draw is going to be lethal from that point out.
Right. Now, if I'm Todd Anderson, I want to get that Snapcaster Mage into play ASAP just so I can gain 2 life with my Azorius Charm.
Right. So end step, Todd's going to Brimstone Volley at... Joe will Brimstone Volley at Todd Anderson. So now Todd has to decide whether or not he wants to Snapcaster the Dissipate, leaving Joe Bernal an opening to start casting Bump in the Knights. What's nice for Todd is that Joe doesn't have the lethal damage anymore. Joe, this Dissipate will hit something, and Todd might be able to stabilize at 1.
Yeah.
And he's going to Dissipate the Brimstone Volley.
Todd's path to victory right here is to not use that Azorius Charm to ultimate the Tameo and then to gain 2 life every turn via Snapcaster Mage attacks.
All right. So Joe Bernal flashes back Bump in the Night. Todd drops down to 4. Todd with the untapped 6 lands in play. Plenty of removal spells. A win condition with Entreat the Angels. He may and syncopate a great draw.
Very, very
Todd
good.
looking like he can. All he needs to do is cast Entreat for 2. He's 1 white mana away from doing that. And then Azorius Charm the Entreat, and that should be enough to win the game.
Definitely.
Snapcaster Mage hits Joe Bernal down to 17. And he passes the turn.
Oh, Geralf's Messenger for Joe Bernal. Great draw. That'll force the counter, or at least force something from Todd Anderson here.
And he's going to go for it. Geralf's Messenger. Todd has to decide here whether or not, it's going to get the syncopate.
Yep, and Todd just has to survive a couple more turns here.
Syncopates for 4. Geralf's Messenger's exiled. And the land from Joe Bernal. Yep, he really just needs that 3rd white source.
Is that it? And nope, looks like that's a Jace.
Tameo now in range of going ultimate.
And Joe Bernal empty-handed. He does have some cards that just make Todd burn a spell. He has Falcon Wrath Aristocrat.
Yeah, the scariest one here is Falcon Wrath Aristocrat. It's his actual only 4 damage spell.
Right.
I think looks like Todd may be able to stabilize here. Jace, Architect of Thought into play for Todd.
And this might actually +1 just to play around.
I don't know. He's going to mini Factor Friction it. And there's the white mana source. Todd will surely grab the lands here.
Yep.
It goes on the bottom of the deck. Alright, and 3rd land into play for Todd Anderson. Next turn he's going to have Entreat the Angels. Joe has 2 turns to burn Todd out. And he's going to start with the cards in his hand, it looks like.
Oh, another Underworld Connections. Not really the draw he wanted.
No, I actually think that... I don't know if I like that play.
Wow, another land. So Joe Bernal getting super flooded here. He's drawn 9 land and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 spells.
Think twice from Todd Anderson. Yeah, the thing is that Todd should be able to just make a pair of Angels here and then Azorius Charm them. And that'll be a 8-point life swing. That should be enough.
Wow, another syncopate.
Tameo's going to ultimate. Snapcaster Mage swing. So Tameo's ultimate now means that Todd can syncopate every turn if he wanted. It's going to Pillar and Flame Joe Bernal 6 times,
Wow.
and that's for lethal.
6 red sources from Todd Anderson.
Now, I have to say myself, I even missed that play that I didn't need the entry of the Angels. Still looking at it as though Tamer's ultimate didn't exist. So Todd Anderson with 6 Pillars of Flame defeats Joe Bernal game 2, and he brings it to a game 3 here.
Yeah, nice shirt, Joe Bernal. Hot sauce, kind of maybe a little evocative of his deck. Yeah. Looking to burn everybody out. Joke's on him though. He got burned out that game.
Yeah.
Roll has a nice little eye roll for Todd Anderson. He'll go back to his sideboard.
So it's that triple Pillar of Flame draw, really doing its work for Todd. Actually, he only ended up using 2 of the pillars.
Right. The last one.
The last one he sure did use, but I don't think he had to, even though he was the card he used to win. Yeah. I don't think from Joe's side that we're going to see much of a change. The Underworld connections are very good. I don't think any of the other cards are things that want to side in here.
Same. Now, Todd Anderson had one of the best draws his deck could produce, and Joe Bernal, frankly, had a pretty subpar draw. He drew a lot of lands. So, with Todd on the play and those 2 draws, and he still barely wins, it's going to be really tough for him.
Really rough. All right, we have an update on the other side of the bracket. Our only undefeated player, Christopher Weidinger, has defeated Lauren Nolan in the first game, so he is now up a game with his Frights deck.
Also, Frights looking to make it to the finals here, storming the scene. Previously only really a Magic League known quantity we found out yesterday. Some people had been playing it on that. I did get a message from a buddy of mine, Andrew Mertes, who claims that he's been playing the deck for a while, but might be a Magic League deck. Sounds a little more likely.
Magic League, that's still being played. That's is it on Apprentice at this point?
I think it's on Apprentice, yeah.
Or Magic, it's on Apprentice or Magic Workstation.
Workstation, that might be it.
Okay.
And for those of you unaware, Magic League is kind of like a pre-Moto Moto. It was what came out before Magic Online, and it doesn't have pictures of the cards or anything fancy like Magic Online. It doesn't do the rules for you.
Right.
So it's really just a really primitive testing tool. But it's great for when the set's not out on Magic Online yet, which is why people use it. A lot of the time, though, you have to take those deck lists with a pretty big grain of salt. It's not really a very big community, not doing a heck of a lot of testing on there.
So looking ahead to the finals, if we have which of these decks would you say would be most prepared to take down a Frights deck?
Oh, well, I would definitely have to say Todd Anderson. Todd Anderson can kind of shrug off a lot of the big threats that Chris Weidinger can produce. He can Detention Sphere his creatures, so the Angel Serenities aren't really going to do a heck of a lot, and Chris Weidinger doesn't have a great way to deal with and entreat the Angels. Going long, that's going to be a big problem for him.
Right. Todd might be able to just actually ignore the reanimation package and just use removal spells on everything that Weidinger does. Weidinger does have 2 Gristle brands to try and stop this, which would obviously be very good in the matchup.
Yeah, that's the fatty he's looking for rather than Angel Serenity. But, Chris Weidinger's sweepers, they can't hit the Entreat the Angel tokens. He has Rolling Temblors, he has Golgari Charms. Neither of these come even close. Rolling Templar can't even hit flyers.
Right, both players, Joe drawing a 7 and keeping. Moves over to Todd Anderson. Todd Anderson looks like they have a lot of lands keeping as well. All right, the turn 1 Rakdos Cackler. Joe Bernal right out of the gates looking at with a 2-power 1-drop. Todd does have a Syncopate, so he has some interaction in the early game. He has a Syncopate, a Terminus, a Detention Sphere, and a bunch of lands. Joe Bernal swinging for 2, no other 1-drops.
Wow.
This Todd Syncopate is going to work out really well. He also has a Think Twice here on end step.
Joe Bernal draws Bump in the Night. Looks like he's going to be leaning heavily on these Underworld connections this game.
Casts Bump in the Night. Todd is not going to counter that. Todd drops down to 15, and Joe's going to Pillar Flame Todd. So all the burn spells coming out.
Third Todd Anderson's life points already taken away before he has a 3rd land in play.
Yep, 2, 4, 6. Todd down to 11, is it?
Looks like 1 attack. No, I believe it's 13.
Oh, it's 11. God. Joe Bernal missing his 3rd land drop.
Oh, I see. Yes.
Recast Paragraph Cool. Joe Bernal sticking on lands. This is the opening that Todd needs to try to get this match.
Exactly. Todd would love to draw any sort of Planeswalker within the next couple turns.
Yeah, he's going to pass turn. He opts not to detention sphere the Diagraph Ghoul.
Yep, he's definitely going to put that on top with the Rakdos charm, or with the Azorius charm, rather. Time walking Joe Bernal. Joe Bernal has no more lands, though he just drew one.
Joe Bernal shocks himself down to 18 for Blood Crypt. He's going to try for Underworld Connections. That'll meet a quick syncopate from Todd Anderson. Todd looking like he's looking in great shape here. Just having to stay alive a little longer. He draws another land. But remember, here is one of the dangers in this matchup, is that Joe eventually draws more burn.
Exactly.
Todd has to watch out for this.
Todd Anderson's deck is filled with cards like...
He can cast another Underworld Connections and Todd, unable to, in response, he's going to think twice, see if he can hit a syncopate. He does not. Bernal's Underworld Connections is going to stick.
Yep, there's a Snapcaster Mage, though, and that's certainly a start for Todd Anderson. It'll let him start doing some damage.
He's got, and Detention Sphere for the Underworld Connections.
Yep. Joe Bernal, Searing Spear, Falconwrath Aristocrat, Diagraph Ghoul, and another Aristocrat. And those are really big threats.
I almost wanted to see a main phase Searing Spear there.
Oh, wow.
Retreat the Angels from Todd. Cat making 4 Angels. If Todd had to see if he has the Azorius Charm, he should be able to get this.
And the miracle off the top for Todd Anderson. He had no way to win otherwise. Just needed that to be on top.
Yep, Joe Bernal Searing Spear at Todd. Todd drops down to 8. He does not have the Azorius Charm, but he does have the Snapcaster Mage. This should be enough. Todd drops down to 5. But Todd snapcasts this Azorius Charm. That should be the game.
Yep, I'm sure he will here.
And then with the pillar he drew, that's actually lethal. Pillar of Flame.
Wow,
at
Joe Bernal.
And Todd Anderson defeating Joe Bernal 2-1. Really getting the break point there. Well played match by Todd. Really seizing those openings there. Joe sticking on 2 lands just at the wrong time.
Yeah, Joe Bernal, he had a great aggressive draw game 1, but games 2 and 3, his draw just really faltered. He didn't have those multiple 1-drops that he needed to put pressure on Todd Anderson.